The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Ski Sundown in nearby New Hartford, Connecticut, offering first-timer lesson packages for beginner skiers and snowboarders. Online registration available at skisundown.com. Winter made better.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Klee Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, we'll get synthy with it.
Na-na-na-na-na-na.
In Williamstown at the Clark Museum, where we'll hear about the Synth Fest with organizer Kent Lundberg.
And hear one of the performers who will be at the festival NXOR for Live Music Friday.
But first, we're taking a quick break.
As we figure many of you are as well.
Because livers also deserve to rest.
Get the beep button. Where's the beep button?
Yeah.
You get to choose your sound for what we bleep you out as.
Perfect. Hopefully you don't need to bleep me too much.
Usually on this show on Fridays, here in the Fabulous 413, we enter what we like to call the Wine Thunderdome, where 2 wines enter and 1 wine leaves. But for many people, it is dry January, where after probably indulging too much during the holidays, they're going to give their liver a break for the month of January and try not to drink as much, which I know people have gone through that and then they realize how much better they feel overall, and it becomes dry January and February and sometimes dry forever. Just so happens that in East Hampton, we have the perfect store that is about to open its brick and mortar. It's called Dry Humor, and joining us is the purveyor of dry humor for our Dry Thunderdome, CJ Muti. You don't like purveyor?
We have one.
One
wine.
non-alcoholic wine enters
Just
and
one.
none leave.
None leave.
We'll probably drink the whole thing because why not?
Sounds
it's
good.
non-alcoholic.
Tell us about starting this place.
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me. So
It's
happy
our
to
pleasure.
be here. My little story here is December 2023 was my last drink and just couldn't do it anymore. Tired, sick and tired of being sick and tired, the whole cliche. And just was so sick of the hangovers, and they were just getting worse and worse as I got older. You know, I don't do a 12-step program. I don't necessarily identify as an alcoholic. So where's the space for me and for folks like myself,
Yeah.
right? So I would say probably around the January, February, right, dry January, I was like, oh, maybe I'll give a non-alc beer a try. You know, I was always a beer gal. And again, never thought I'd be one of these people who I was like, what's the point, right, of a non-alc beer? But I was like, let me give it a try. And it just really became the tool for me to help me through this process. It really, I'm finding that it was just like a habitual activity for me rather really than the loving to go out and get drunk. It was just like what I filled my time with was drinking. So like, what do I do now? And so I was enjoying the athletic beers, which of course are the most popular, and you'll find those at the liquor stores.
But are relatively new and kind of, I think in my mind,
blowing up.
Open
I
the
think
doors to how they could actually be good non-alcoholic beer.
And I think we'll get to that because, like, it's not as if non-alcoholic things haven't existed
for
a while.
Yeah, like water, milk.
Don't do this. Like, juice. But, like, I remember at, like, my my family's, like, cookouts, like, they would have O'Doul's. And, like, we'll get into quality of products later. Like, we want to continue this story, too, before we get too distracted.
Right. So, let's see. I was going into liquor stores to get my athletic, but was finding it to be really uncomfortable, having to go back into that atmosphere again. And of course, getting like, what is it, the hairy eyeball from the liquor store owners who usually saw me coming in there for lots of beer every single day. And now I'm coming in and getting non-alc. And it's just like, I don't want you to comment on it. Leave me alone. So I was like, I don't want to have to go into a liquor store. I'm also not hugely impressed with the options that are out there. And so I thought to myself, why don't I just start trying to find other options that I buy online for myself? And then I was like, well, wait, maybe there's a market for this out here. And so then I just said, let's just make an online store, do some pop-ups, see if there's a calling for it. And less than a year later, here we are opening a store because it's just been so wildly successful, if I may.
Tell us where the new store is going to be and when it's set to open. We were kind of hoping we'd get to go visit you there.
I know. Tell ya. So it's supposed to, January is the goal. It's always been the goal. The store's under renovation right now, 79 Union Street in East Hampton. So we're hoping for January. So even if it's January dang 31st, we are opening this month. They are, as we speak, they are renovating the floors. That's been a big, waiting for that to get done. So, once the floors are done, then I can really start getting everything from my garage over to the store and hopefully just get the food application in and approved, no prob, and then opening up our doors.
where have you been selling besides online, like in person? Like I know about you not through the online store, but from encountering you at like markets around here. So what was it like getting into those? What was your transition getting into like real person interactions?
Sure. So I think I started going on Eventbrite, right, and just looking for vendor events going on. And of course, out in this amazing area during the summer, there's so many farmers markets. There's so many like craft fairs events and things like that, just vendor events in general. So really went to Eventbrite, and I think I actually found the NEPM Asparagus Festival. And hey, shout out.
Shameless plug.
That's right.
Shameless plug.
And I signed up for it, and I had absolutely utterly no idea what I was doing. I rented a U-Haul van and threw everything in and set up a tent. And it was, oh my gosh, it was just such an amazing day, not just in terms of selling product, but meeting really crucial people that have helped bring me to where we are today, including my business partner. And so from there, really, it's just a matter of finding events that are happening, being in the know, signing up and paying the fee and going to the events. That's pretty much it.
So you met your business partner at the NEPM Asparagus Festival?
I did. I was just in my booth doing my thing, and he popped his head in and said, oh, I work with one of the local breweries. We're working on a non-alc, option, so that would be cool to work together. And we just developed this awesome relationship over the summer and the fall, of course. And he said one day, I want to partner up. Let's do this together. And he's been just incredibly crucial in this whole process. And yeah, that's where we're at.
The same can happen to you at this year's NEPM
Indeed. Everybody come and sign up.
We're speaking with CJ Muti, who is running the soon-to-be brick and mortar Dry Humor on Union Street in East Hampton sometime in this dry January. It is our dry wine, non-alcoholic wine Thunderdome.
I want you to tell a little bit about some of the difficulties that you had finding brick and mortar, because I remember talking to you about this at one of said other makers markets.
Yes. So let's see. Really a matter of funding, really difficult, right? You got to find that first, last, and security. You've got to find funding for that. So we secured funding, and then it was just a matter of finding the right spot and getting the owners of these spots to understand what the business is and why we're doing this, and to, of course, agree to our proposal. There weren't a ton. We wanted to be in East Hampton, absolutely. Not only is all my branding saying East Hampton, but I really, I live in East Hampton. I just love that adorable little city town village. I just love the feel of East Hampton. So I really wanted to stick in East Hampton. And so there weren't a ton of available spaces for lease, but we happened to find just a really good one on Union Street. It's been empty for a while. And that was it. We started, working with the landlord, putting in our letter of intent, and they accepted it. And it was in September about. So these things, it definitely takes a while, right? You got to be patient. I'm not the most patient person, but we are, like I said, everything comes together when it's supposed to, and that's kind of where we're at now.
CJ, you were mentioning how your last drink was in the end of December of 2023, that you reassessed your relationship to alcohol. The Surgeon General, just at the right post New Year's Eve, basically said, hey, guess what? Alcohol and even the recommended amounts for individuals can be cancer-causing for 7 different types of cancer. I'm imagining you're encountering lots of people that are renegotiating their relationship with alcohol. What are some of the reactions that they've had, both to what you're making available to them as just a business model, and then some of the specific products and what that means to them?
Sure. So, absolutely, like you said, the Surgeon General, everything's sort of just like happening, like everything's coming together in this moment for the non-alc industry. And yeah, I think folks have been really rethinking their relationship with alcohol, I think probably for a while, ever since they debunked the whole a glass of wine a day for the antioxidants is good for you. I think ever since then, folks have been questioning. And I think especially, like you said, with the Surgeon General, I have family members who are, pretty big drinkers. But even since I've started doing this, I think when you are interacting with somebody who doesn't drink, it kind of makes you immediately start thinking about your own drinking. And so I have family members who have really cut back. So, of course, Athletic is the biggest, most popular beer brand. And so
that's the best.
It is.
It's pretty good.
Listen, I got to tell you, everything they come out with, I love. There's just nothing I've had that's not good.
And where are they based?
They're in Connecticut. They also have, they're on the West Coast as well. I think in San Francisco they have 2 facilities. But Athletic absolutely is sort of something I always bring to pop-ups as sort of like name recognition, right? So that'll bring them into the booth. But then there's so many other smaller craft brew brands, Go Brewing, Atmos Brewing, Well-Being Brewing. Those are some of my favorite beers. Of course, Al's Classic Lager it's just Al's. That's the name of the company. That's all you need. It's a light beer. I was always a light beer gal, so I really do like a light lager or pilsner. But then the wines, especially, I find a lot of people obviously looking for, they love wine time. And so the red wines have been a little bit difficult. When you remove the alcohol, it kind of removes a lot of that complexity, the texture, the tannins.
Isn't
right?
it just grape juice?
Oh, okay.
Well,
Let's see.
There are some that work.
Yes.
Like, I've only had, because my partner stopped drinking.
Sure.
So we're always on the hunt for things that taste good.
Yeah.
Now that I've gotten them to have a proper palate and they're not just drinking garbage with or without alcohol.
Sure.
But we've only really found one red wine that was good.
Okay.
And we bought it in Quebec.
Yeah, got it. Well, that's the thing. It's I think, like you said, this industry is really booming right now. And so there's new companies and new drinks coming out every day, weekly, of course. And so it's beer started at one point and it wasn't great, and then it got better. And so absolutely with the wines, it's only going to get better. I mean, rosés and whites and sparkling especially, really, really good. But the reds, like you said, you gotta mix and match and try. You gotta try to find your sweet spot for sure. We have a ton of ready to drink cocktails, which I thought beer, people think like you. I thought beers would be the most popular, but the ready-to-drink cocktails were huge, right? Like the pre-mixed margaritas and Cosmos, things like that. And I think it's because people can, if they want to still drink a little, they can just throw a shot of their preferred liquor into the pre-made drink.
Plus the cocktails have so many other ingredients that can add so many different flavor profiles to it that aren't the alcohol.
100%.
So that makes it almost the easiest of the options, in my opinion. Like they're making a red wine or a beer.
Right.
That tastes good, that reflects what it was like when it was alcoholic, but isn't. Do you know anything about the processes by which they're doing this, either in the wine world or in the beer world? Like, are they? How do they take the alcohol out? Are they actually brewing it? Or,
Exactly.
Magic.
Yeah,
it's
right.
magic.
It's
That's
magic.
it.
It's like caffeine-free coffee.
Exactly.
I don't understand.
It is science, is what it is, really. And hey, science is magic. I totally believe that.
Absolutely.
But so yeah, the beer and wine, and I also think some of the non-alcoholic spirits that are out there actually do start as traditional alcoholic beer, wine, and spirits, but then through any number of processes, reverse osmosis, which is where you have a centrifuge that can spin really fast, and it basically separates the lighter molecules from the heavier ones, I guess. And alcohol is a light molecule. Vacuum distillation is another process, controlled fermentation. And I think, too, if you're a home brewer, really, you just can burn at a low level, boil out the alcohol. So it's really just, again, science. It's heat. It's chemistry. It's pretty crazy. That's as far as I can go, though. You don't want me to try to dive any further. Use the Google machine. I should not be the only one to telling you.
Coming up, more with CJ Muti as we get to taste one of the non-alcoholic wines you can find at Dry Humor online currently, and soon in their brick-and-mortar store in East Hampton.
Plus Live Music Friday with synth drone creator NXOR,
who's one of the many guests at this weekend's Williamstown Synth Fest at the Clark Museum, and we'll hear about that as well.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. We're speaking with CJ Muti, who's got a new store that's about to open, but is online right now and doing some pop-ups called Dry Humor for Dry January. It's going to be based in East Hampton, and it's a perfect time to explore this avenue of beverages.
Actually, that's the one thing that we missed, for non-alcoholic spirits, which have also, again, kind of hit a boom. Do you have, now it's time to ask you if you have favorites.
So some of my favorites, like I said, love Al's. It's in my fridge right now. I love Best Day Brewing's Hazy IPA. When I was a drinker back in the day, I never liked an IPA, but I've just started because of having to test and taste all these different options. I love a hazy IPA now. Right now, what you just cracked open is a woody sparkling white. Absolutely one of my favorites. It's again in my fridge right now. They also have a rosé. Love it. And this for the spirits, it's hard because I'm not a spirit person. I'm actually taking cocktail classes right now just to be able to help inform customers a little bit better. But hopefully I'll be adding some of spirits to my favorite list as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about this sparkling white. Where is it from? What's the maker all about?
So
what grapes are they using? Because they're still using grapes, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
right?
still grapes. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, and I'm awful. I got to get better at this, right? Come on now.
No, you haven't even opened yet.
I've had this one before for sure. But I think a lot of these, California based. I don't. It should say on the bottle of this one. But again, most of the wines, because they're using traditional grapes, they're coming out of California. They're coming out of the West Coast, Northwest Coast.
I don't know where Heldsburg.
Is it Germany?
No, California.
Oh, okay, nice.
Heldsburg, California.
There you go. A lot of the wines coming out of California for sure.
Yes.
And like I said, Germany too. We're seeing a lot of them coming out of, which is, surprising.
Okay, let's see. We're in California. It is north of San Francisco, so it's like seeming like it's in wine country.
Thank you
Because
so much.
they do all wines, even though they're going to become alcoholic.
That's right.
If you let them to their own devices, do
Indeed.
start out as non-alcoholic grapes.
This one is very sparkly.
It is.
I'll try to hold back my indigestion here on the mic.
And it
Cheers.
smells yeasty, which is what I love about sparkling wines, because the yeast is what causes the secondary fermentation of the bottle. And the bubbles, I wonder how they made the bubbles happen for this one. You can also just take carbon dioxide and inject it into beverages. That's how Coca-Cola does it.
Yeah.
Who's doing?
Oh, listen.
Listen to the
That is not static on the radio. That is the sound of the moose crackling in Khalees's mic.
There's a lot of moose.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
Right.
Yeah, some of them I do find are a little over carbonated for my opinion. Like I don't like seltzer water. If I do, I like a Pellegrino because it's like light. It's like not as
You don't like the aggression
yes,
of like a polar.
I love the meme that's like somebody drank water and was like, what would make this better if it hurt, and they, you know what I mean. So sometimes, but you'll get that too with regular alcoholic wine, and sometimes in my past life I would open the bottle and put it in the fridge and leave it there to let some of the carbonation come out. And so yeah. Sometimes I got to do that.
Well, I think this is really good. It's a little bit sweeter than maybe some of the dry, not in the non-alcoholic, but in the not sweet wine terminology than some of the sparklings that I've had before.
But it's got a really nice yeastiness.
Yeah, it's
that
really,
I really appreciate.
It's
a
very
little
delicious.
tart too at the end, which I like. It like my jaw made that had that little feeling at the end. Like, yeah, this one's I like. I had this one over my New Year's celebration, which I did not make to midnight because I'm sleepy. But I still celebrated with my Woody's champagne here.
Don't call it champagne.
Right,
That's
right.
offensive to me.
Come on now. Isn't the only champagne's really from France, right? That's
From
the
Champagne,
Champagne
France.
region
right.
of Champagne.
Everybody,
Like,
respect.
It's the one thing I call people on in my wine snobbery.
There it is.
I let everybody else go as far astray as they want. But this is what's interesting is, you could have Welch's grape juice or juicy juice, and it's going to taste like grapes.
Yeah.
It's grape juice.
Right. Yeah.
This is non-alcoholic wine, but does not taste like grapes. To me, it has more of a green apple profile.
Absolutely. Yep.
Even though it was made with grapes. So this is an interesting, I guess, advancement in the world of non-alcoholic wine for sure. Which is not something I've had a whole lot of. I've had athletic beer. I had O'Doul's when I was a child.
I do kind of want to talk about the improvement in quality of what's available. We do keep bringing up O'Doul's, but it's still available.
Yeah.
It's still in a lot of places the only non-alcoholic beer that you can find. Maybe Klosterhaller if you're lucky.
Yep.
Yeah.
But just the vast improvement of what's available. Would you mind speaking to it? Because I'm sure that you had some of that other stuff in, either early in your journey or at other times when you were like, I'm taking a break.
Yeah. I think that it's just the popularization of not drinking has really driven creating more options and working harder to make better tasting options. I think O'Doul's and I think Busch NA is very popular with the, let's say, baby boomer crowd who have quit drinking. That's just they drank Busch Light their whole life. And so now they just go right to, which tastes pretty much just like regular Busch. But I think that, I've always been saying that I think it's really millennials that are driving this whole movement, right? Like we binge drank ourselves sick in college. Like we were raised on movies like American Pie and Superbad to get drunk, and that's what you do. And I think we are done and fed up with that, and then we just really want to make it our own and find better options. And there's it's not a race to the best. It's a really nice non-competitive environment where people are working together and, what have you learned in your brewing process? And you know what I mean? So I think it's collaboration and definitely popularization and people just wanting better options, which is what's driving people and companies to make better options.
You mentioned that going into liquor stores right when you stopped drinking was a little uncomfortable. Do you still find that and bars to be uncomfortable spaces for you? Do you find when you mentioned that you want something non-alcoholic to bartenders that they are welcoming or a little put off by your requests?
I think I feel a little more confident now in going into those spaces, and I don't get as nervous, especially if there are non-alcoholic options, if we're talking in bars and at social settings. And I think it just takes a while getting used to it and again, feeling confident asking the bartender for that option, especially when you're also sitting at a table with a group of people. It's a little bit more awkward. But if I have a bunch of friends who are celebrating a party, a birthday or something at a bar, I'm of course going to go. And I kind of just give myself a little pep talk. You might feel a little uncomfortable. This might, if they don't have an option there, that's okay. You can have a soda water with lime, but you're not going to drink. This is not going to be something that's going to push you over the edge to drink. And it's sort of my mantra. I know I never want to drink again. And so I know I just need to let the feeling pass. And before I know it, I'm just back in the party and everything is just normal and nothing to be afraid of.
But then that extra shout out to those bars and places 100%. That make specific effort to have mocktail menus.
It's so important. And not only is it important for inclusion purposes, but for heaven's sake, you're going to make money. I mean, if I go, I won't go back to a restaurant that only had O'Doul's or Guinness NA, which those are, again, they're totally reputable, fine options, but those are just not for me. And if I say, do you have non-alcoholic drinks? And they say no, and I say, okay, I'll have a coffee or a water, you're going to get $3 out of me instead of $17 to $20. So it's just business-wise, you should carry, right? But it really is about inclusion, and people are going to come back based on your options. And I just think you want to make people feel included, and that's what's going to bring people back into your bar or restaurant.
CJ Muty, who has Dry Humor about to open on Union Street in East Hampton in a brick and mortar, has been an online presence over the course of the last year and a pop-up presence as well, including at our very own NEPM Asparagus Festival. What are some of the things that you have learned about yourself since you've given up drinking? Not to get too therapist on this, but I think a lot, people are constantly, I myself, constantly reassessing my relationship with alcohol. How much is too much? Mm-hmm. Am I going too far? Should I take a break? That kind of thing. What are some of the things you've learned about yourself?
Gosh, so much. But I think the number one thing I've learned is I thought that I would lose a lot and that I'd be taking things out of my life by quitting drinking. But it's really brought more into my life. And all of my fears of what would change and how I would be perceived and what I'd be able to do and not do were so wrong. And in fact, I'm way more excited about going out and socializing, whereas before I used to be I don't really want to go to this party. And I think it's because I would get drunk and do embarrassing things and not remember them. And so now I have less social anxiety. I've learned that about myself. I've learned that I can get up really early and do a lot of things and pack a lot of things in my day because I don't feel sick all the time or I'm not hungover. And I've just found that I can deal with life's realities and difficulties without having to say, I need to have a drink, or I need to just put this off and have a drink and not deal with this. I think reality is the hardest drug that you can do. And I've really learned that while it's really difficult to deal with these things, I can do it, and I don't need alcohol to, I guess, I would say help, but it definitely never helped. So, and I've learned that I can still have fun, and I still am fun. I mean, oh gosh, I am just so crazy and loud when I'm out in public and in social situations. I love to party, and I still love to party, and I'm still fun and loud and just doing and saying crazy things, and I remember it all the next day, which is even better. So. There's many other things I've learned, but those I think that are the big ones for sure.
CJ Muty from Dry Humor, which will open its doors sometime in dry January and will remain open for all your dry purposes if you continue on that path throughout the course of 2025 and beyond. And as one of the very few non-alcoholic wines that I've ever had, this Woody's, I must say, is quite delicious.
All right.
Yeah, this is pretty good.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate your time.
I also, huge shout out to your Metallica-themed Dry Humor merch.
Thank you very much. Don't tell Lars.
Now to go play with music-making machines.
We'll hear about the Williamstown Synth Fest, hear one of the performers who will be playing there for our Live Music Friday, and find out more about this magical-sounding synth petting zoo.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family-owned and operated complete exterior remodeling business offering windows, siding, gutters, and more. WindowWorldofWesternMA.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. This is a series of firsts for us for Live Music Friday, where the live music is coming to us virtually, and the live music is going to be synth-oriented, because tomorrow, Saturday, January 11th, in collaboration with the New England Synth Fest, is the Williamstown Synth Fest, an evening of immersive audiovisual performances featuring electronic musicians from Massachusetts and upstate New York.
You can experience the transformation of the Clark Art Museum's Michael Conforti Pavilion as artists His Quiet, NXOR, Michael William Gilbert, Orange Peel Mystic, and Architrave blend. I love the names of electronic musicians because it's just sort of like you have to try so much harder.
Well, and they have to be Googleable, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. They've got to be unique and Googleable, so...
It's beautiful. But all of them blend dynamic electronic soundscapes with vivid projections, pulsing light displays, and real-time animations.
You'll also be able to unleash your own creativity at their synthesizer petting zoo, where you can explore, play, and craft your own electronic sounds using a variety of synthesizers. No experience needed.
Joining us from the festival is Kent Lundberg, a.k.a. Dr. Analog. He's a PhD who is the president of Keeling Flight Hardware, a Massachusetts corporation that provides design, research, and educational services in the fields of analog, electronics, and control systems for companies, universities, and government organizations. He's also been a lecturer at places like MIT.
We are also joined by artist Andrew Abramson, who performs as NXOR. Andrew is a Pittsfield native who's brought his distinct Western Mass roots to Boston's thriving hardware scene, which I didn't know that's what they referred to the synth scene as, the hardware scene. I love that. Known for blending hypnotic percussion and moody down-tempo soundscapes, NXOR's music carries the industrial and introspective tones of the Berkshires into the wider electronic music landscape. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wish that people could see your board because it's just this massive amount of like boards and wires going everywhere. And I personally, like when I see synth artists, I love that when they have analog boards because it's just this flurry of people moving cables the whole time to create all of their different sounds.
Yeah, it looks like an old-timey switchboard for like a telephone operator. And we're looking at Andrew Abramson, NXOR's, like the back. Is that the front or the
it's
back?
The front.
Yeah. It's incredible. How do you keep track of what's where and plugged into what?
Colored wires in memory.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess it's just like playing a piano. You know, there's 88 keys all over the place. There's some
right. They just happen to be scattered around, that's all.
Contrast that to Dr. Kent Lundberg's very meticulous office there, but with a bunch of guitar pedals color coordinated and lined up behind him on a bookshelf right there. Kent, you're the founder of this synth festival and the New England Synth Fest as a nonprofit. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself founder. It's a team effort, but New England Synth Fest is we're a loose-knit collective of artists and makers and educators and enthusiasts of all stripes that put on events supporting the electronic music community in New England.
Tell us about that community. I think maybe people aren't as familiar with that. We have a lot of like singer-songwriters on the show and like jazz musicians and classical musicians, but we haven't had a ton of synth musicians on.
Yeah, there's a wide variety of people, a wide variety of musical styles involved. You know, Boston's always been famous for its underground music scene of all kinds of stripes, right? Mm-hmm. And, we're mostly synthesizer enthusiasts, interested in hardware, interested in the physical aspect of music creation, but we also have collectors, hobbyists, artists and engineers, a wide variety of people doing a wide variety of musical styles, and we produce these events that include performances and lectures and workshops to bring these people together and have a good time, have a good social, educational, networking time.
We mentioned that you are a particular proponent for analog electronic music. Can you talk about what that is for people who won't necessarily think about it? They'll think about like synths and think, especially like with the movement of time, it being mostly digital, but that was definitely not always the case and has never always been the case. So can you talk a little bit about the analog aspect of synth music?
Yeah, you're asking an electrical engineer about analog. I might give you an answer that's not best for radio audiences, right? Maybe I ought to throw this one over to
Give
Andrew.
me specs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the easy way to answer that in sort of the musical context is that the divide between analog and digital is not as binary as you might think.
Funny.
So you can have sound generation and sound molding equipment, which is all analog based, which would be sort of a purist perspective. But you can also have generators or other things which have some kind of digital control or digital to analog conversion. But there's still, in a lot of synthesizer music, people will sometimes talk about things as being analog when they really mean it's hands-on. Mm-hmm. So when you have a lot of physical knobs and things that you can turn in order to make changes in the sound, people will sometimes call that analog, and it's technically it's wrong, but in terms of performance, it actually makes a lot of sense. The idea of having this organic interaction with the instrument, which is different from something that you might do in a DAW or, purely sequenced or something like that.
A digital audio workstation, yeah. And
that's my dodgy answer.
Yeah, you can call an electric guitar an acoustic guitar because it is of or pertaining to sound.
Right.
It also has electricity that runs through it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we're speaking with one of the performers of the Williamstown Synth Fest, originally from Pittsfield, Andrew Abramson, going by NXOR, as well as Kent Lundberg, a.k.a. Dr. Analog himself. How did you get hooked up with the Clark Art Museum in Williamstown? Because when Khalees brought this up and said there's going to be a synth petting zoo and a synth fest, the Clark is not necessarily as well known for cutting edge. It's a lot of beautiful art from a long time ago. So how did the Clark become the home base for this?
Well, we've produced a wide variety of events around Boston, most recently with the Museum of Science, where they hosted us in their planetarium. And so we had live music in the planetarium with visuals on the planetarium dome, a very immersive experience. And then along with that, we had performances and exhibitors and vendors in the lobby. And we had a couple years ago, we had a string of events there, summer of 22 and 23. And I think the Clark saw those and they reached out to us and asked if we could host a performance and exhibit at their facility. And we thought it was a great chance for us to get outside of 128 and do that. We're trying to shed our reputation for being the greater Boston Synth Fest and really be the New England Synth Fest. And they've got a beautiful space there. They've got a beautiful performance space in that Conforti Pavilion. And we're really looking forward to having the event there.
Andrew Abramson, who performs under NXOR, what does NXOR mean? Where did that name come from?
It is derived from logic tables. So there, I don't know how much audience we lost there, but if you do your logic tables and you have your regular and, or, not and, not or, when you get to the end of it, you have something that's NXOR, which is a not exclusive or logical state, which I tend to also take as a metaphorical meaning. I won't go into the depth of that right now, but it's derived from a logic table.
That's awesome.
You had asked about the pronunciation at the beginning as an aside. It's usually XNOR because people can pronounce it better when it's the logic state, but the proper order of letters is NXOR, in case anybody's wondering.
And you're going to be performing with VJ Zombie, and so it'll be this, he's a visual artist and a stage designer from Madras. Tell us about that collaboration.
I've worked with VJ Zombie a whole bunch of times specifically on a series I do of sort of meditative ambient music, and we were brought together by somebody who's now a mutual friend from Berlin. So we were complete strangers, but he is such a master of his craft and such a wonderful person. And I'm just really glad to have him along at the event. So he's very good both at improvising, but also at bringing in other visual artists to work with his system. So he'll do mapping across very complex architectures and then let other people come in and do part of the visuals. So he's just a wonderful person, a fantastic artist.
That's amazing.
That's so cool. How did you two connect? Because I'm also curious about the electronic music scene in Western Mass, or like the Berkshires writ large. Because Andrew, you're based in Pittsfield, and I mean, all festivals are about building community. And I'm just curious how this one in particular came to connect.
Well, my origins are Pittsfield, so I was born in Pittsfield because Cheshire doesn't have a hospital, and I was there for most of my young life. But I'm actually a Boston resident now, which is how I ended up. If you're a Boston resident and you're doing synthesizer music, you gravitate towards the New England Synth Fest.
Kent, your email handle is Dr. Analog. So are you a performer yourself, or are you an organizer of this kind of behind the scenes person?
Yeah, I'm better behind the scenes. I keep my performances locked in my basement. I have more fun kind of behind the scenes.
But for people perhaps like you, Kent, and me, who have no experience with this, we can get some experience with this synth petting zoo. Tell us about the synth.
And I have to say, everyone that I have mentioned this to has gone, what?
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
We're enthusiasts, and we love these instruments, and we love the sounds and the music that they make, and these petting zoos kind of cropped out of opportunities to share that with other people. Some of showing off what we have and showing off what's available and possible with some of these machines. And so we gather a variety of people to bring in a variety of instruments, new and old, analog and digital, sometimes audio and video. To give people an opportunity to play with them, to see what they do, see how they work and how they sound, and it can be a lot of fun, and it's a good opportunity to get people of all ages involved to just kind of see what's available, and then to play around with some of the tools.
Along those lines, Andrew, I'm curious what your introduction into building boards like your massive unit that we're looking at on this screen was. Like, where did you begin?
I guess I've always had sort of an interest in, even when I was, playing in sort of more traditional bands, I was always interested in electronic music. I think the way that I got into electronics themselves, like I haven't built these particular things, but I have built my own synthesizers, and I got into that from originally doing vacuum tube amp circuit repair and design and building for people. And then eventually I got into solid state, because having a low chance of electrocuting yourself lets the creativity flow in a way that otherwise much slower. So I guess the electronic side of it came from vacuum tubes into transistors and IC stuff. And the musical side of it really was in parallel with, playing traditional drums, guitar, bass, keyboards kind of stuff.
That is Andrew Abramson, who performs under NXOR and will be part of the Williamstown Synth Fest, which is in collaboration with the New England Synth Fest, tomorrow, Saturday, January 11th, at the Clark Art Museum in Williamstown. It starts at 6 o'clock. We're also joined by Kent Lundberg, who behind the scenes helps to orchestrate this wonderful thing, not only in Williamstown, but across the Commonwealth and beyond. And it is Live Music Friday, so maybe we take a little break here, and then NXOR Andrew Abramson is going to perform for the first time ever a Live Music Friday virtually, and also for the first time Live Music Friday ever a synth-oriented performance, right here on the Fabulous 413.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by UMass Amherst School of Public Policy, offering graduate programs in public affairs, public policy and administration, data analytics, and computational social science. umass.edu/SPP. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping customers make the switch to solar for savings, energy security, and tax incentives. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. It's Live Music Friday, and we are welcoming folks from the Williamstown Synth Fest, organizer Kent Lundberg, a.k.a. DJ Analog, and performer Andrew Abramson, performing under the name NXOR.
We've been talking with Andrew about performing, but can you talk to us about some of the other artists that are going to be performing at the festival?
So we've got a great lineup on Saturday. hiss quiet with some dark ambient music. Michael William Gilbert is a composer of electronic world music. NXOR does these great down-tempo soundscapes. Orange Peel Mystic is kind of an avant-garde performance artist psych pop persona. And Architrave does a great blend of kind of new wave and dark wave, a wide variety of styles from some great performers.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm very excited.
All right, NXOR, Andrew Abramson, tell us about this piece that you're going to perform for us.
So I'm going to do just a part of what's the first movement of the thing I have planned for tomorrow. So it's fairly minimal, and it's based around just intoned clusters, six note clusters, and it's meant to be kind of meditative and drony. What you'll hear is a change in the relationships of those just tones, and then there's going to be some sort of tom sounds coming in about partway through. And those are not regular drum sounds. They're really derived from that whole cluster. So they have a harmonic relationship to that underbed of tones, and also a polyrhythmic or polymetric relationship between them. So you can kind of hear them hitting individually and then hitting singly. And the two sides, especially if you can hear this in stereo, you'll hear how they line up in center and then split from side to side. And so, anybody who's listening to this online, I highly recommend you don't listen to it just on your phone. You'll miss a lot of it. You'll get a lot more from it if you can manage to put headphones on. So that's kind of the layout and movement for this first part of the piece for tomorrow.
Andrew Abramson performing as NXOR for Live Music Friday. He's part of the Williamstown Synth Fest happening tomorrow at the Clark Art Museum in Williamstown. Take it away, NXOR. Woo!
So cool.
That's so cool. It was amazing that we get to see you changing all the, like, plugging in the different patches and things like that
And
in the synth. It was...
Yeah, with people with boards like that, it's the most fascinating thing, like how much of the sound can change just with like a small adjustment or movement of like quarter-inch cables, just quarter-inch cables.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Excellent stuff. That is NXOR for Live Music Friday. Pittsfield native, Boston resident, who will be part of the Williamstown Synth Fest, which is part of the New England Synth Fest. We have also been joined by Kent Lundberg, a.k.a. Dr. Analog, who is presenting this tomorrow at the Clark Art Museum in Williamstown. Thank you both so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Are any of the pedals behind you going to be in the petting zoo?
No, there will be better stuff than this.
How dare you besmirch Boss in this way? Boss is a pedal company.
Yeah. We were both clarify that. If you're not playing guitar a lot, you don't know about the Boss pedals.
Some are better than others. I will concede that for sure.
That's true. They were all very well organized in his office there. Well, next week on the show, we check in at the CARE Farming Conference happening early next week, at the heart of which is ServiceNet's Prospect Meadow Farm.
And we'll introduce you to the person who writes the soundtracks for NASA's videos, who will be performing that music live at 33 Hawley, Steve Thomas.
He also has been inspired by the International Space Station, so we will be joined by International Space Station astronaut Katie Coleman.
Because we take every opportunity to talk to a real live astronaut that we possibly can, wouldn't you?
Indeed. Plus, Plus the annual MLK Day celebrations at the Mass Mutual Center and an MLK concert with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra.
And Live Music Friday from Behold True Believers, plus much more.
We leave you with more of the music of NXOR, who will be part of the Synth Festival happening at the Clark Art Museum in Williamstown tomorrow.
Where you can play with synths yourselves at the petting zoo.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Clee Smith. We'll see you next week on the Fabulous 413.